back to Life, Biz, and all that jazz. I'm your host, Jasmine. If you're new here, welcome. Welcome along. This is going to be an incredible journey for you, and you're going to learn so much. If this is the start of your journey, don't be scared. You've taken the first step, and that's all that really matters. If you've come back for more, thank you. Thank you for trusting me and coming back for more. Today's episode is going to help you understand yourself more instead of shaming yourself. We're often our own worst critic, and the pressure of society, the way that everyone is needs to be fit into some type of cookie, often shapes our reality and the way that we see ourselves. Have you ever thought to yourself, why am I like this? Why do I think like this? What if it wasn't you? What if how you perceive yourself is just something that you've learned? It was a coping mechanism from trauma that you built, and it's a way for you to feel safe. But what if you don't have to live like that anymore? What if you can uncover the reasons, the triggers, and the beliefs behind this that make you feel this way, to really open up your understanding of yourself and accept yourself for who you are and what you have to offer to this world? One thing that I really want you to take away from this episode, and throughout the episode, if you feel like you don't relate, or your situation is a lot bigger or a lot less, or you just don't see what I'm trying to share, is that you are not broken. You are wired. You are wired in a certain way from conditioning, from trauma, from a lot of things that you've had growing up to be who you are. The best thing about this is that you can rewire your brain. You can rewire your thoughts, your thinkings, your habits, beliefs. And that's what we're going to dive into today. When I first started my journey, I found that I was putting a lot of blame. And this is going back years now. And before I decided to remove alcohol, removing alcohol was the final part of my journey that I needed. But before that, I had a lot of blame on the world. Why me? Why did I have to go through trauma? I never really blamed my dad for anything. Like, I did go through a stage where I had a lot of, like a grief stage of a lot of anger, or like, why didn't he talk to us? Why didn't he reach out to us? And obviously being a child and seeing what we saw growing up, I was like, well, I was a child. Why did you put me through that? But then it's also having that understanding that he was sick. And the more I have dealt with my mental illness and who I am and understanding myself and going through my own dark times, it's made me just accept that what has happened to me is not my story. It's not my purpose, and it's brought me to where I am today. But at the end of the day, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And I think if we can try and change and be a better person, accept our past, accept what people have done to us, then that is healing on its own. Because having that self-awareness is often going to be thinking in a way towards somebody and understanding them, like understanding why someone is the way they are to you. Where I'm getting at is, I think something that's really important to remember is that trauma happened without your permission. You didn't ask for trauma to happen to you. And maybe you're listening to this and you were the person who, inflicted pain on somebody else, and you're going to be looking at this from the other side. You need to see that that person didn't deserve what happened to them. The main purpose of today's episode will be for people that have experienced trauma themselves. So as I was saying, trauma happened to you. You didn't choose for it to happen to you. You can't go back and change the past. But what is up to you is you get the choice to heal. You get the choice to unpack what you've been through, to really dive deep and to be able to heal what is causing you to feel this way. For years, I turned to alcohol. Alcohol is what numbed my trauma from 15. And that was after the first big experience was the fire. That was the first traumatic event that I'd been through. And alcohol to me quieted my brain. It made me not feel, it made me not think. And over the years, it just got something that was normally accepted. And it was only to a point, 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, that I looked and I thought, like, why do you drink like this? Why are you doing this to yourself? And in the moment, it was all I knew. It was all I knew to feel happier. It was all I knew to continue to bury the pain. And then once I removed that, that's when the transformation happened. That's when I felt 20 years of pain that I just bottled down and pushed down. And so this is where we need to accept that the trauma that happened to us was not our fault. But what is our fault is if we are continuing to let that trauma affect our lives, affect our futures by numbing the pain with alcohol or whatever you're using and taking away from what we can truly have, what we deserve to have and the life that we deserve to have and how great life can really be once you heal that trauma. And it's never going to be fully gone. Like you're always going to have it there. You're going to get triggered by things, but it's learning to know that that was a part of your past. It doesn't need to be a part of your future and you get to choose that. So one thing I find is really interesting, and as you know, I have been doing a course in neuroscience and mental health, and we learn a lot about the brain. Neuroplasticity, about healing, about mental health conditions, medication. There is a lot going on, and it has been very eye-opening in a way, and I'm really excited to learn more. But I think one of the most important things I found, and that's why I wanted to do this episode, is because trauma actually affects our brain in development, brain development, depending on what age you experience the trauma. It rewires our brain thinking. It rewires our nervous system. It rewires our brain in certain ways that we will react to things differently than people that have not experienced trauma. We will look at certain situations differently than people that haven't experienced trauma. And I think if people could just understand that, there are people that do, but I think there's a lot of people that don't see that we are all different. We are all different. We are all wired different. Every single brain, there's no two brains in this world that are the same. We are all totally different. And I think the more that people can accept that, maybe we can make this world a better place, because I think the hardest part for someone that's dealing with trauma is to have people around that don't understand them and make them feel unseen and unheard. And that's a hard thing, because a lot of the times I think if someone's making you feel that way, they probably don't mean it. They just don't understand. And it's a way maybe of explaining this to them. This is how I feel. This is how my brain's wired, but I want to fix it. So trauma changes the brain physically and emotionally, but our brain is wired to be in a negativity bias. Our brain is wired for survival. Going back to the years, back, whatever, how many years, we were on this earth as hunters and gatherers. We were on this earth to hunt and protect. That's how our brains are still programmed. The only thing that's changed is what's around us now. We live in this digitalized world. There's technology everywhere, but our brains are still the same. So yes, as I was saying, our brains are built for survival, not happiness. We just learn how to rewire them to be happy, to live a happy life. When we experience trauma, what it actually does to our brains is that it creates shortcuts to alertness. It creates shortcuts to withdrawal, to be reactive. Whatever is going to keep us safe, that's what pathway it will create. There's two parts of the brain that really become affected when we experience trauma. The first part is the amygdala. This becomes overreactive. Then your prefrontal cortex underperforms. This is then when your brain will constantly be on autopilot. If you're feeling like you are unsafe or where to start, the best advice that I could give you to start to deal with the rewiring, to start to unpack trauma and just to see where to go, is to journal. Journaling is so powerful, and I'm going to put some journal prompts in the show notes. I think it's really important to start small And just even if you can do a few minutes a day, you don't realize the power of journaling until you've been doing it for years. So even after a few months, though, you can rewire and think positive. They say, I think it's like 30 days. If after 30 days, like my habit thing is 66 days, but that's a little bit different. But this is if you just positively talk to yourself and write it out over like a few weeks. I can't remember the exact amount, but your subconscious will already start to change and you can start to rewire your thoughts, talking positive to yourself, or even just reading some positive affirmations. Now, let's have a bit of a chat about trauma and personality, because we're often put in this assumption, would you say? We'll call it assumption by other people of who we are. And the reality of that is we can often mold our beliefs and our thoughts about ourselves by the way that someone perceives us. But internally, we might think something so different about ourselves. This is where trauma can really have an effect on the way that we are as people, the way that we show up for our family and friends, and the way that we show up for people that we don't really know. If we're in a constant state of fight or flight, do you expect to be able to show up as your best self? Do you expect to be able to be happy and be able to, spread joy? No, I don't think that's going to be possible. Maybe some people can do it, but if you're doing it, more than likely you're hiding it and you're masking it, because I know what it's like to mask happiness for years, and it's detrimental to your mental health. It makes your journey longer. It makes it harder for yourself. And more than likely, you're just going to be dealing with it behind closed doors on your own. Trauma does shape our personalities. It does. But again, the positive to this is once you uncover and you open up the wounds and you heal the trauma and accept the trauma, your personality will start to shine through again. You will feel more like yourself. You will show up more like yourself. People will tell you that you are different. They will compliment who you are, and you will just in general want to be better for your family and friends, and you will want to just be better for yourself. And that's what it really comes down to is the self-love. You will uncover grief, parts of you that wish maybe you healed the trauma earlier because things could have looked different. You can't stop that. I think in a time of feeling that way, it's really important to know that that's a part of healing. Healing is a part of reflection, and there is so many emotions, so many ways that you are going to deal with certain things of your healing journey, especially when it comes to deep trauma. It comes to any trauma. There's no comparison. Trauma is different for everybody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be associated to an event, which I was having a chat to a friend about the other day, and he mentioned that, which I thought was quite interesting because I've kind of thought that way, but then a lot of the events that I've had were quite traumatic, but then it's also the in between, and that can be sometimes just as traumatic for some people that it is to experience one traumatic event. One of the biggest trauma responses that I've had, and I've not really spoken about this on the podcast yet, but when I was 10, well, I have OCD. I've clinically been diagnosed with OCD. I know that was just an addition to the ADHD. I always knew I had anxiety, but I knew I never had depression because they tried to label it as high functioning depression. But anyway, I'm not going to go through the labeling because I don't associate with that. I just know that my brain chemicals are a little bit different, and there's just certain things that I have to do. But OCD. So when I was 10, around 10 years old, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was around 10, I started having intrusive thoughts. And these were really bad thoughts. Like I thought I would think my family would die. And like if I saw a car crash and I was with my mum, I'd think, is that my dad? Or vice versa. Just all these things would happen. And the only way that I could stop the thoughts happening was to touch wood. So you know how we used to well, some people might do it now. I don't do it now because it's like a trigger. But if you think of something bad and you touch wood so it doesn't happen, well, that's what I used to do. But I would have to do it all the time. And I would do it before bed. I would do it in the morning. I would randomly do it at school. And I was 10. Like, I look back now and think, wow. Anyway, I probably stopped doing it my early 20s. So all this time I had been doing that. That was my coping. And yeah, I'd have to count to 6, touch wood 6 times because there was 6 family members. And yeah, that's just how I dealt with it. And then not until recently, I was talking with my brother, and obviously I knew I had OCD, and it also comes with a lot of other stuff like numbers. It's not always about cleaning. I guess as well with that and ADHD, they do counterreact, which is probably could have been why I didn't realize I had it for so long. But anyway, that's another story. So my brother was saying how OCD is a trauma response. And I looked back and I just thought, like, maybe I just had it, like, I just born with it. Like, I never really knew much about it. Just the psychiatrist kind of told me for things I do now. But now, being more self-aware and having that control over my mind and rewiring my pathways, I know not to do it. But it was still hard to get to. And now it more comes out with organization and having to have things a certain way. Yeah, it's very different now, and I can stop my brain from reacting to it, which was hard, but I did it. And that's why I wanted to share this, because we really don't understand the power of our brain. Like I do now, and that's why I want to share more, because our brains are magic. Like literally our brains, we can rewire anything. We can rewire our brains to have a totally different mindset. Like this is more on the topics of like mental health. We can change our thoughts. We can slowly work on it every single day. Our brains are that powerful that we can rewire. And neuroplasticity, which we'll touch on a little bit more, is literally the brain's ability to rewire itself. As we do get older, it is a little bit harder, but it's still possible. And this can literally happen until we're really old, until we are 90, 95. I was watching a TED Talk the other day, and it was really cool because I'll try and find it and link it in the show notes. It was a lady, and she was talking about her father who had dementia, and she was really sad because obviously he's older, didn't really know her, and she'd still go and visit him. And in her culture, they didn't really say like, I love you a lot. It wasn't something that they really said, but she wanted to say it to him. So she asked him for permission to tell him, and she did. He said yes, and she told him. And then the next week, because he wasn't remembering stuff at this point, not really knowing a lot of stuff, but the next week she went to visit him and he said it to her. And the reason why this happened was because it was a new pathway. So it was a new memory that was created. I just think there's just something so inspiring with that. And our coping mechanisms can actually look like character traits. And that's really just our nervous system trying to protect ourselves. And this is where a lot of people will say, when you are coming through that journey and you are coming out the other side of transformation, that, you know, brighter to be around, you're offering more from who you are, and you will change. You will be different, and the right people will stay around and they'll accept you and they'll still love you. But deep down, you had that all along. That's who you were. And maybe for some people you did show that side, but then other people you weren't able to because you didn't feel safe. Now, my favorite topic, neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to rewire itself. So this is where we're going to learn new things, and our brain is always learning and also unlearning. So we can learn new habits, new routines, new rituals, new beliefs, but we can also unlearn old ones that we don't want to have anymore. And what it really takes is repetition, healing, and feeling safe. When you are thinking about buying a new car, so let's use this example because I know you all relate to this. So when you're thinking about buying a new car and you're looking for that car, why do you think you see it everywhere? Because your brain thinks that that's what's important. It's a repetition. It knows that you're thinking about that. That's something that you have been looking at for a while. So you start seeing those cars again because it's a memory. This is the same with anything that you want to learn. The more you learn about it, the more you're going to see it, the more it's going to be there and you're going to be aware of it. I think when I was in my dark times and, when I didn't think there was a possibility for happiness, for joy, and to live a life like I do now. I think probably the hardest thing is that this was who I am. I can't have happiness. Like, I just had no self-worth, no self-love, and that I was at a point where I was so down, and I didn't think that there was anything else for me. I didn't think that I had the possibility to change the way I thought. I didn't think that I would be able to have a life and, not have negative thoughts every single day. Like, you're still going to have them. You can't fully change who you are if you've been through trauma or, you've been through hard times. If you've hit rock bottom, it's all a part of your story. It's all a part of who you are, but it doesn't need to have that negative effect on you all the time. And I'm not saying that every day is going to be easy, because it's not. You still need to work on yourself every single day. You still need to show up for yourself every single day, but it's the small steps that will be the greatest achievement. And just to finalize our chat today, it's so important to remember who you were before you experienced the change. We'll call the trauma the change. Before you experience that hurt, that pain that you feel like you can never let go of. Who were you before? Because I often think for myself, and I've got a picture of myself, I'm probably like 5 years old and I'm dancing on the table at a family party and we're with my cousins, and I just am so happy. Like, I'm 5 years old, and it's so important for me to go back and think, that girl, I owe it to that girl to live my best life, because she didn't know what was coming. She didn't know what was next. And if you could go back and I could give her a hug and just say to her, it's not going to be easy, but you will get through it. And to come out the other side now and feel more connected to my younger self than ever, because of those years that I just did live on autopilot, that I was just surviving and numbing the pain and pushing the trauma down and not dealing with it. To be who I am now, I just feel like me. I really do feel like me. And that's where it's important to remember who you were before the world changed you. Healing and dealing with the trauma is all about unlearning what made you feel unsafe, unlearning what made you feel unseen, and learning that you are safe, you are seen, and you are enough. It's always about remembering the small things, and this is where journaling and positive affirmations can really help with it at the start and continue to help, like I'm still doing today. Remembering that every time you show up for yourself in love instead of fear, you're getting closer to the version who you're meant to be. That version of joy and happiness and heal. If you can take anything from today, I know I said this earlier on, but you're not broken. You're brilliant. You're becoming, and life is a lifelong journey. Every day is a step forward, and every day can be beautiful. Like, you are going to have bad days, but knowing that you will get through them and that you deserve the best and you are enough and you are loved is what you just need to hold on to. Your brain kept you safe when you needed it most. Now you get to teach it to feel free, calm, and worthy. If this episode resonated with you, please hit follow or share it with someone that you think might need to hear this. Jump onto my Instagram as well, or my TikTok, and we can connect more on there. I often share a lot of small tips and wins and just daily rants, and also some fun dances, just to boost your mood and keep you going, and know that you're always supported. DMs are always open, so if you ever have any questions or just need support, let me know.